Do your children misbehave all the time? Are they constantly doing things you don't want them to do? Do you even like your kids? Today we're going to draw a comparison between training dogs and training children. And it's not what you think. Let's jump straight in. Dogs and children have one very important thing in common. And I'm not talking about how messy they get when they play outside, and I'm not talking about how they like to eat their food. What I'm really talking about is that the person responsible will dictate how they grow up. If there is a naughty dog, it's the owner's fault. If the dog is fearful, it's the owner's fault. If the dog is biting people, it's the owner's fault. If the dog can't contain himself, if he has no self-control, it is the responsibility of the owner. When we look at a dog, maybe it's at the park, maybe it's going for a walk, and it is misbehaving, it's naughty, it's yanking on the leash, we all instinctively know, unfortunately, it's because the person who trained the dog, they didn't do it properly. And as you can probably tell, I'm drawing a picture between the dog and the child. And so when we look at children, children are raised by their parents or by a close family member. But if we look at a child, we shouldn't be blaming the child for any actions that we don't like. We really need to look at the parent. When parents receive a baby, it's like receiving an empty book full of lined pages ready to be written in. And as parents, we have the amazing privilege of being able to write the story of this child's life. So what are we writing in it? Obviously, dogs and children are very different. One is a dog, one is a human. The point that I'm trying to make is that we as parents are responsible for the kids as a dog owner is responsible for the dog. Unfortunately, a lot of us parents seem to think that children should just raise themselves. Like, just send them off to school, they should learn. They'll learn from someone, but we never stop and look at ourselves and our ability to parent and say, hey, what are we doing to help the child learn whatever we want them to learn? In this way, we must be very conscious of the fact that both dogs and children need thorough training. If you've ever trained a dog before, you know how much time it takes. You repeat things over and over and over. You give them treats, you give them rewards, you reprimand things they do wrongly. You encourage what you do like, and you discourage what you don't like. We do things with the dog so many times consistently in a controlled and intentional way. And we need to take this approach when training our kids. And as with dogs, children can pick up when you're angry. They can detect when you're not in control. And when you're overly emotional, they don't tend to listen. Let's go through 3 things that dog owners do, good dog owners do, that us parents should also do. Have you ever watched one of those incredible dog training videos? There's a few guys on the internet and they do such a great job. You see there's an aggressive dog, maybe a German Shepherd or a Pit Bull, whatever, and they are extremely aggressive, or they bite everybody, or they can't be taken on a walk, whatever the case. The expert comes in, and within about 15 minutes, he's solved the problem, and the dog no longer has the same issues he once had. So what changed? The difference is the person who was in control of the situation actually knew what they were doing. When the professional dog trainer comes in, he's calm, he's collected, he knows what he's about, and he's in control. He's done this before, he has the knowledge, and he comes in, he immediately takes control of the dog, and the dog is happier. What's very interesting is that when a dog doesn't feel safe with its owner or in its environment, a lot of the time, that's when it acts out. The same is true for children. When we have kids in our home, if they don't feel safe, if they feel like their parents are not actually in control of the home, they act out. A lot of the time, our children are scared because we are not helping them to feel safe. So what do we need to provide for our children? We need to spend a lot of quality time with our kids. Many people say, yeah, it's quality or quantity. No, it is both. Lots of good quality time with our kids. And let me be very clear on this point. This is not what the parents deem as they should feel loved. If we do X, Y, Z, and we think, yeah, they should feel loved by now, I've put all this effort in, maybe you're putting effort into the wrong thing. We need to love them in a way that they feel loved. We're doing something for them and with them. Start to strengthen the bridge that is between you and your child. Not only do we need to create good times with them, but we need to make sure that our home is a peaceful place to be. If we're coming home from work stressed and tired, we can't start arguing with the kids. We need to give them something that is calm, something that is in control, in which they can feel relaxed. It's up to us. All right, number 2. Good dog owners do intentional training with their dogs. When we get a puppy, we don't just expect it to sit and stay and roll over. We either train it or we book it into a class where they train puppies. And we know there are certain things we want him to do. We want him to catch. We want him to fetch. We want him to drop the ball. We want to, make him sit down, roll over, come when we call him. These are the basics, right? And we are not doing anything with the kids. If we want them to come when we call them, why did we not train them to do that? If we want them to sit nicely at the table, why haven't we trained them to do that? We as parents can't just assume they should know it because we're the ones directly responsible. We can do all these things and much more because kids are much smarter than dogs. Here's an example. As soon as my kids could crawl, I started to train them. Let's say, for example, my girl's name is Anne. I would put Anne on the floor as soon as she could crawl. And I would put her maybe, a couple of meters away from me. And I would sit on the floor and I'd say, Anne, come here. And it might take her a few goes, but she would realize, oh, Daddy's calling me, and she would come over to me. I would make a big song and dance when she got there. I'll throw her up in the air and say, oh, good job, Anne. What a good baby. You're so smart. And then I'll put her back 2 or 3 meters away, go and sit down and say, Anne, come here. And we would do this 4 or 5 times and we would stop. So what am I doing? I'm intentionally training her to do something that I want her to do. This not only teaches her from a very young age, you need to do what I say, but it also helps her to realize when I say, come here, I expect her to come here. Now, I would continue doing this training for the next 6 to 12 months. And whenever they were somewhere, even in another room, I would train them. So I would go through these little training routines. As they got older, they could walk. It was a lot easier to call them because they could come quicker. So I would do it again. I would put a child in another room. I would say, stay there for a second. I would walk out of the room. I'll go to another room and I'll say, Anne. And I listen and there's a little pitter-patter of feet. And she would race up to me and I would grab her and hug her and kiss her and say, good girl, you're such a smart girl. And we would do that a few times and that was it. Now, they will test you. Children will always test to see if you are legit. Every single time you want to teach them something, they will think, is my parent actually legit? Do they mean what they say? I'm going to find out. So I guarantee you they will test you. So every now and then, the child would not come. And maybe they would peek around the corner and smile at me. And so I'll go over there with a very straight face, not stern, but a straight face, a serious face. And I'll say, Anne, when I call you, you must come. Go back over there, we'll do it again. But I'm not angry, I'm not upset, but she needs to know if I say to come, she must come. Now, this is not only helpful in the home, but this is life-saving. If my child is running towards a road and there's a truck coming, I need to be able to shout, Anne, come here, and she comes here immediately. If we have trained our children not to listen to us, and they're running toward a road and a truck is coming, and you say, Anne, come here, if you've trained her not to listen, you could lose a daughter. This is very serious. And that's why I was so intentional right from the beginning. I knew these times would come. It's my job to protect them. And if I'm not training them in ways that are going to keep them safe, that's on me. So what did I do? I gave her an intentional command in which I was always consistent. 100%. You must be 100% consistent in all types of training. If you are not, they know that he's only serious sometimes. These training sessions can be about anything. It can be come here, it can be sit down, it can be, I don't know, fold your hands. It can be a multitude of different things. And you as the parent, you get to decide. The third one, behaving well in public. When you take a dog for a walk, you know there are distractions. It is more exciting than usual out there in the big, the big wide world. Your dog is going to misbehave more than he would at home, where there are less distractions. As you can guess, this is also the same with kids. If you take your kids to the supermarket, do they want to grab stuff off the shelves? Are they excited with all the lights, the activity, the people? Are there things that are taking their attention away from you, the parent? Of course. But have we trained our kids to be ready, to be obedient in that type of environment? You can't expect your children to behave like angels with all these distractions if you've never taught them how to behave in that environment. To get a dog to behave in public, you teach them to do things at home. If you don't want him to yank on the leash every time he sees something, then you take a walk around your yard or in your quiet street, and every time he pulls on the leash, you bring him back. You teach him, hey, when you're on the leash, I'm here, don't run, right? You give him training where it's easy. You train him, and eventually he knows whenever there's a leash, he will not pull. So that when he does come to something difficult, he already has that foundation that you've trained into him. And it's exactly the same with the kids. If you don't want your kids to grab stuff in the supermarket, you need to teach them. Talk to them. Play a game. Show them, hey, when we're at the supermarket, don't grab stuff. And make it fun. Play shopping at home. And even get them to push their little baby in the stroller. And get them to tell their child, don't grab stuff off the shelf. When you are in the car going to the supermarket, just remind them all, hey kids, what's the rule for in the supermarket? Maybe you've made a little catchphrase. When we're in the supermarket, we don't grab stuff from the shelves. I don't know, make it rhyme, make a song, whatever you want. But make it fun. And they don't do it. I had to do this with my kids. If I took them shopping, we'd be in the car. I'd say, okay, kids, can you touch our stuff on the shelves? And they'll say, no. All right, and can you touch other people walking past you? No. And it got boring. They were bored saying no because we'd done it so many times. Now, obviously, kids will never be perfect, just like we will never be perfect. And they'll slip up. They'll make mistakes. They'll forget the rules, whatever. It happens. But when it does happen, we need to be consistent. If you're pushing the trolley, your baby reaches out and grabs something, you grab a hand and you put the thing back and you say, hey, what's the rule? And they'll go like this and they'll remember, okay? They're not being naughty. They're not being disobedient. They honestly forgot. And we don't need to get upset. We just say, what's the rule? And they'll say, oh yeah, don't grab things from the shelf. Okay, and maybe give them something to help. Bring them a toy that they can play with in the trolley. Tell them to fold their hands. Give them something to fiddle with, a bit of string that you tie onto the trolley, whatever. Make it work. So to wrap this up, no, children are not dogs. But if we teach them in a similar way, we can train them to do a lot of really good things and make our house a pleasant place to be. If you want some free help, I've got a little ebook. It's in the description. Any questions, stick them in the comments. I'll see you in the next video.